she's got a lot more Democratic votes there, but Virginia is a lot closer than I thought it would be at this point.
I want to bring in the chair of the Democratic National Committee, now Donna Brazile. Donna, thank you for joining us right now. We're seeing these close states across the board. We're seeing Florida, we're seeing North Carolina, we're seeing New Hampshire, we're seeing Michigan, we're seeing Virginia. How worried are you?
Well, George, we're still confident that there are lots of votes that have still not been counted. Votes that are in traditional Democratic areas, and of course, votes that we believe that will go to Secretary Clinton and Senator King. So I'm still confident. I've talked to the team back at the headquarters here in Brooklyn. So I'm optimistic. Even if we can't overcome that big hurdle, I still believe that there are enough votes out there before we start popping the champagne.
And Rebecca Jarvis, I think you're wired up right now. What do you see?
The closer this looks, George, the more stocks are falling, the more Mexican peso is falling. And these have both been a barometer of Trump's prospects in this race throughout the campaign. As Trump has pulled ahead in the polls, we've seen a sell-off in both the peso as well as stocks. As he's fallen behind, we've seen things pick up in the stock market. So tonight, the closer things look, the more we're seeing the Dow down now 500 points.
Democrats had also been banking this Latino surge in Florida, but boy.
I don't know, George. Take a look at this. It's still very close, but Donald Trump with a 130,000 plus vote lead. And I've been talking a lot about Broward County, just north of Miami. Look what's happening in Broward County. 98% of the vote is in, and Donald Trump still has a big lead in the state of Florida.
Donald Trump holds on to Florida. He's leading now in North Carolina, leading in Ohio. We don't have enough vote yet in Iowa. Those are what they call their core four. Then all he really needs is one more of those big blue states from the Democrats.
Yeah, and John's right. I think as we move forward, this comes in, if this sticks with the way the numbers are, and as we know, all these are a few thousand votes, it becomes the Great Lakes state of Michigan could ultimately decide the presidency.
Stephanie Cutter, nervousness in the Democratic camp? I guess that answers the question.
This camp. I think you're right. I mean, Michigan, we knew it was going to be closer. There's even though we believe Florida is leaning in Trump's direction, there's still some vote out. There's big Democratic counties that have yet to report in Michigan. I think this night is just going to be later than anybody thought, but I think she's still favored to win.
But John, let's go back to that state of Michigan, as you said, becoming more and more important by the hour.
This is a state that Barack Obama won by 9 points. Right now, only a quarter of the vote is in, and Trump is up 5 points. Here is what's happening. Look at 3 key counties in Michigan. First, Marquette County up north in the Upper Peninsula. Look at this. Trump is beating Hillary Clinton in Marquette County. You know what happened in that county in 2012? Barack Obama won by 14 points.
And let's go to our friends at 538 right now. Nate Silver is joining us right now. And Nate, pretty dramatic change in your forecast now.
We haven't had any swing states called yet, and those are states that Clinton was supposed to win. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those states are all correlated, meaning that if you have problems with white working class voters, if you don't turn out African Americans, then you potentially lose those states or win by a razor-thin margin. I mean, she is in profound trouble right now in the Electoral College.
And as we were coming into the day, you had your projection above 70% for Hillary Clinton. Where is it right now?
I mean, I would look at betting markets, which say that Donald Trump is a narrow favorite to win the Electoral College.
Donald Trump has won the state of Ohio. Donald Trump wins the state of Ohio, one of his core four. You saw it right there, a big victory there for Donald Trump. There you see it. Donald Trump has won it. We'll be right back.
George, I just want to say, over the last half hour, I've been sitting here and I keep thinking back to the primaries and these 17 Republicans duking it out. And I'm talking to sources in the Clinton campaign throughout all of it, and they thought they were getting ready to run against Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush. And they never thought that it would be. They have always said the race would be tight, but I think when it came down to it, the thought of Hillary Clinton running against Donald Trump, they thought they had this in the bag.
Kristen, it's kind of astonishing that he's this close right now when you've got a majority of Americans, solid majority, say he's not qualified for the job. 9 battleground states left on the board. John Carlos, take a look at Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is quite a story. 48%, almost half of the vote in, and Donald Trump with a 2-point lead over Hillary Clinton. With almost half the vote in, to see Donald Trump leading in the state of Wisconsin is nothing short of shocking.
He didn't win in the primaries.
This is a state he got trounced in the primaries because the entire Republican establishment in the state was against him. Paul Ryan was against him. Scott Walker was against him.
Martha Raddatz, I wonder what Vladimir Putin is thinking right now.
I think Vladimir Putin's probably very excited right now, and I think other world leaders are a little fearful. Let's remember what the Trump supporters are voting for. He asked for a ban on Muslims, build a wall, defended Mexicans, the disabled, lashed out at a Gold Star family, the military fighting in Mosul around there. He said they shouldn't tell people what's happening, and the Access Hollywood tape.
Use the word fear in talking about how foreign leaders are responding to this. I've got a number of emails from friends of mine of color across the country. And there's also a level of fear growing in brown America. Because just if you look at the optics of the Trump rally, to many people that looks like 1950 America. You don't see many brown people walking around that room.
Donald Trump is unfit for office. He is temperamentally unfit. He is unprepared. Not only that, he is likely to fly off the handle and maybe even cause a nuclear war.
Matthew Dowd, this is really something we could have one of the biggest upsets ever in American history coming up.
Regardless of the final outcome, which I think heavily leans in Donald Trump's favor, this is the biggest political upset news story in 100 years. And I think we're going to look back at this. It's more so than any other election, presidential election, that we've seen in our lifetimes, but go back 150 years.
By the way, I've got to share something with you first. A tweet from David Plouffe, who was, of course, the architect of Barack Obama's win in 2008.
Oh, Hillary couldn't lose.
Yeah, absolutely. He said, never been as wrong on anything in my life. And Pennsylvania, tight. Look at that. Look at that, George. Donald Trump is back in the lead in the state of Pennsylvania by about 8,000 votes.
So he's ahead in Pennsylvania, ahead in Michigan, ahead in New Hampshire, ahead in Wisconsin right now.
It's looking like a Trump victory.
George, we're just hearing from a donor to the Clinton campaign, a top donor. I want to read you this quote that has just come to me. Quote, done, over, he is the president.
This is from a Clinton donor.
Clinton donor.
There you have it. So we
have not heard from anybody in the campaign. We have not heard from anybody in the campaign. There's still radio silence. And I'm told by my colleagues who are there in the room at the Javits Center right now that there are no aides to be seen. But again, to read it to you one more time, this stark words from a top donor to the Clinton campaign, quote, done, over, he is the president.
You're talking about the Dow futures before. World markets are now open as well. Asian markets are open. What are we seeing?
We're seeing lower across the board, George. The Dow is now, as far as the futures market concerned, down more than 800 points. The S&P 500, which is what most Americans track their 401k to, futures of the S&P 500 are down 5%.
This is a rejection of the neoliberal world order that really has been the consensus of governments across the West and across the world for a generation. And
themes, Tom Yamas, that Donald Trump hit again and again and again, repetition from that very first day in June 2015.
Well, I think if you couldn't figure out in this election that it was uncool to publicly support Donald Trump and tell somebody, you weren't paying attention or you didn't have a phone.
Stephanie.
And I just want to address one thing, the social undesirability of saying that you're for Trump. There's a reason for that. It's not because his message was hopeful. It's because his message was divisive. Make America Great Again was a dog whistle for keeping immigrants out.
I'm confused at this moment.
Join the club.
Right? Because I went to an all-boys Catholic high school in Baltimore, made up mostly of blue-collar kids. And I've been talking to them, my classmates tonight. And they see it as, once again in America, the underdog has won. And that's a good thing, because that's very much an American quality, that the underdog has won, right? Then I talk to many of my friends of color and women, because oftentimes in America, if you're a person of color, you're told if you get an education, get a good job, prepare yourself, you can be as successful as anyone else in America. And in this case, you had a woman who was on paper as prepared as anyone could be to be the president, and she lost to, forgive me, a white guy with a haircut.
Matthew Dowd.
I just can't, the historical, unprecedented, we've said that word unprecedented from the very beginning. And even if Hillary Clinton pulls out a close victory in the final hours of this and all of this, something went majorly off in all of the expectations everybody on both sides had.
And I think it had to be more than secret Trump voters, people who wouldn't say they were voting for Trump. I didn't find very much of that. I didn't find really anybody who wouldn't say, I'm voting for Trump. They went out there, they listened to him say, this is not over. They didn't listen to us. They didn't listen to anybody else about the polls. They went out and voted.
Clinton campaign hoping it's not over yet. I want to go to Cecilia Vega, who's going over to the Javits Center now. Give us some sense of the scene there.
George, I got one word for you: bewilderment. These people in this room in here look completely shell-shocked. I just got in here, but on my way in, there were people who looked like they had come from a party, and they were walking out to an event that's not yet over.
A lot of hollowing out at the Democratic Party. You aside as a mayor of Baltimore at lower levels.
You know, this has been, to Stephanie's point, just troubling, and to Byron's point, you know, we're very confused because the numbers were just so wrong. Just all across the country. I was in Florida stumping for Hillary Clinton. I saw people that were coming out to the polls. They wanted to make sure their votes were in the bank for Hillary Clinton. There were good numbers that we were seeing. I don't know if there was some overconfidence in the Democratic voters, but we definitely have a lot of regrouping to do as a party.
Here in Times Square, tell us about the crowd, what you're seeing, what you're hearing out there.
Well, you guys have been talking about being shocked and confused and surprised about the evening. Same sentiment out here in Times Square, where we have thousands of people gathered around, but something I've never heard before is quiet. It has been quiet in Times Square this evening as the results have popped up on the screen behind me. Because nobody is in the mood to be having a good time and having fun out here, because these Hillary supporters, again, pro-Hillary crowd, they have been in absolute shock.
From closing in on what would be a stunning and historic victory. If he gets those final 25 electoral votes go the way it seems right now, she will have to make the hardest phone call of her life.
Exactly, George. And I've been making hard phone calls throughout the night, and I can't get anybody from the campaign to answer my phone calls. They're literally going to voicemail at this point. I just want to show you the scene here behind me, if you can see it. We just saw them pack up the confetti machines that they were planning to blow out here. This hall is completely empty, complete radio silence, which tells you what they're thinking right now.
Stephanie Cutter, I know you talked to a lot of Democrats and people pretty stunned right now, but is it starting to settle in? Do they realize what's happened?
They definitely realize what's happened.
I was just thinking about the fact that when you have something like this, something that is so unexpected, it's one of those things that you almost have to sit with. You know, so I'm not surprised that Secretary Clinton is waiting until tomorrow. I think she might be doing it for her own sake, but she might be doing it for the vast majority of the country if it looks like she's going to win the popular vote, that needs to sit with this for a second to try to process what just happened before we figure out, again, how we can heal our country and move forward.
A lot of processing going on, but there's a lot of elation right there at the Donald Trump campaign headquarters, the part where they're going to be having the party, waiting for Donald Trump to come speak. You see those signs there, the New York Hilton. Donald Trump and his entire campaign in a state of high elation right now. Some of them must be shocked. As we've said, the most stunning political upset in American history. From two sources that Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump.
That's what we're hearing tonight, George, and it is out there in other news reports as well that Hillary Clinton has indeed called Donald Trump to concede this election.
So there you have it. In a few minutes, you're going to be hearing first from the Vice President-elect of the United States. We can't call it yet, but we've heard that Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump. And let's listen.